Am I live? Says I'm live. Oh, it's a black screen. Oh, wait, isn't that nice? Oh, maybe. YouTube has to catch up. All right. Well, I think I'm live. I'm having issues on my end, and we're trying to get Annie into Discord, and we're having an issue seeing her account. We've been working on it for like a minute here. Okay. Well, I'm just kidding. I'm getting bombarded by author registrations here. Okay, how do I get on it? Send me another invite. I guess we can try that. Let's see if I can get back into podcast. Maybe. Invite. Copied. How if I just do it this way? Hold on, people. I'm working on it. Let's see if that works. I don't have a... Oh, crap, I don't have a video going. No. All right. Yay. Oh. Yeah, this is why I normally like to do this at 6:45. But the last few interviews we've had, everything just worked perfectly. So there we go. There we go. Hold on.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
All right. See if I get the... There we go. Okay, I've got video
Okay.
going.
I see you.
I don't see you.
So my camera is not on. How do I? Oh, wait, here we go.
There we go.
Okay. There we go.
There we are.
Okay.
All righty. Took a little bit longer than normal, but hey, it is what it is. I was going to ask before the show started if you wanted to do the whole hour or if you wanted to cut it short for any reason.
No, I don't want to cut it short for any reason.
Okay.
We're not live yet, right? Or
Oh, we are.
All right.
That's
I'm
right.
totally ready to go.
Okay, so I think everything's looking good here. So the sound looks good. Okay. Alrighty. Well, tonight I'm here with Annie Dawid. Is that how you say your last name?
Dawid, yes.
And you've had quite the career in writing. Like I went through your portfolio and you like started did I read it correctly that you started as a freelance editor in the 90s?
Yes, or really 80s.
Oh. Wow.
So, yeah, I've been at it. I would say I've been seriously hard at work as a writer for 40 plus years.
Nice. Yeah, I was looking back and that was the first thing I saw was something from I thought it was 1994. That was on your website. But yeah, that's quite a long time. And you've done a lot of work as the director of creative writing at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and the master's program, and the
Yeah.
master's program for creative writing here at the University of Denver.
Yes, that's what I do now. Yes.
And so is that an online or do you actually go to Denver or is there a
No, it's
university there?
online. I've been doing it since 2016. And I do fiction, memoir, essay, and my newest class was the novella.
Yeah.
So I do various, and the writer's workshop class. So I'm semi-versatile in my teaching.
Well, that's pretty cool, actually. I don't think I've had anybody that's had quite the career. You've also got like numerous awards and finalists for your books and stories. Uh, like the website is like lists all of them, right?
Well, yeah,
Most
I
of
mean, you don't want to keep stuff on there that's so old, so
them.
I'm trying to focus on what's new. So this is Paradise Undone is my newest book. It's a year old. It just had its book birthday, and I've won a few awards and been a finalist for that book. And so that's what I've been focusing on this last year. Paradise Undone, a novel of Jonestown, and you had said that's what you were interested in.
Yeah,
So
it piqued my
yeah.
interest. I guess we can jump the shark a little bit here. So you published Paradise Undone, which I wanted to get into a little bit in a moment. But have you ever
Okay.
written and published other historical fiction pieces?
No, this is my first historical fiction. I shouldn't say that. This is my first seriously historical fiction. This book, uh, And Darkness Was Under His Feet, Stories of a Family. This is historical fiction, but it's about my own family. So the research I did was to give substance to all the interviews I did with my family members
Yeah,
so I could get everything right in terms of what happened, when, and where. So that was kind of my intro, I guess. But Paradise Undone is my first completely researched book. It's not my story. I was not at Jonestown. I I don't I when I started writing, I didn't have any personal connection to Jonestown.
um, yeah, that was probably the Jim Jones tapes were probably one of the most disturbing recordings I've ever heard, to be honest.
Mhm.
And they haunt me to this day. Like there's times where I can still hear it, and it's haunting. It's nightmarish. Um,
Yes.
what inspired you to write about the Jonestown Massacre in the first place?
So, um, I had a high school friend I was very close to who disappeared into a cult in the 1980s. So that was after Jonestown.
Yeah,
And she was just in a kind of a very small group in New Mexico. So there's no link to People's Temple or Jonestown there. But I couldn't understand how my friend, who was smart and funny and creative and not a follower in any way, she was very bright. She was more of a leader than a follower. And yet she disappeared into this cult for 20 years, changed her name, wouldn't communicate with anybody from her past. And I really wanted to understand how somebody who seemed, very like me, who was smart and cynical and not somebody you think would get drawn into such a thing.
yeah,
So that was the impetus for writing about it. I had written a story about her and her sister, and I was a guest teacher writer at the University of North Dakota Writers Conference in 2004. And I was reading this other short story to this big crowd. And there's one mention of Jonestown in the story, which is that her parents go to a deprogrammer, and that was true. Her parents did go to a deprogrammer. And the deprogrammer says, well, I have to be totally honest with you. I lost my daughter in Jonestown. And I just made that part up. But
Yeah.
it was a kind of caveat emptor, like I couldn't even get my own daughter out of a cult. So you should know that before you hire me. And in real life, the person they hired also did not succeed in getting these young women out of the cult. So after the reading, my friend who was part of the English department there came up to me and he was crying. And he said, oh, I can't believe that you talked about Jonestown. I have good friends whose family died in Jonestown. And Jonestown was just one word I read for like 45 minutes.
Mm.
And this was the response, and it was such a powerful response. I've never had somebody come up to me in tears after a reading. And so that just made a kind of permanent imprint on me. And then a month or two later, I was gathering research materials for my second sabbatical, where I was going to write a novel about the hippie communes in southern Colorado in the Huerfano Valley. And I was so this was when I was living in Oregon, and I was at Powell's Bucks. And I was in the C aisle and I was looking at communes. And then I kind of rolled down a little and I got to see you and I got to cult. And there were all these books about Jonestown under cult. And so I was there and looking at these books, and I thought about my friend and his being so moved at just the mention of Jonestown and his friends who lost family. And I'd always been struck by Jonestown. I was a freshman in college when it happened.
Yeah.
And I had my bookstore aisle epiphany, and I said, I'm not going to write about the hippie communes. They can wait. I'm going to write about Jonestown. So that was 2004. So this is 20 years later, and my book has only been in the world for a year because I had years of writing. I had a New York agent to get it published for the 30-year anniversary in 2008. It was ready, and he couldn't get somebody to say yes. We had some almost. One big press said, well, we're publishing a nonfiction book about Jonestown, and so we don't want to have two Jonestown books. So he gave it back to me. And then for 15 years, I tried to get it published on my own. And without success, although I was a finalist 17 times during
Yeah.
those years.
That should have been almost a guaranteed spot somewhere.
Well, you think. And then in 22, I ended up having a conversation with a British woman regarding a short story contest that I won. This has nothing to do with my novel. And she said, oh, I'm starting a small press. And then I told her about my history with this novel. And she said, oh, I said, well, but I think it's really kind of an American story. And she said, no, it isn't. I want to read it. And a month later, she said, I want to publish it. So that's how it came into the world 20 years later.
That's cool. It kind of it's cool that you finally got it published.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
I got a question from Jennifer Decker who says, have you seen or heard of the series Cults to Consciousness, where the survivors of cults tell their stories first-person experiences?
Yes, I have. I've been kind of very involved since the book came out with being learning about cult education through mostly podcasts. And so I've been on a number of these cult education podcasts. My book was reviewed by the International Cultic Studies Association,
Nice.
known as ICSA. And I'm not a cult survivor myself, though, so I don't come at this as a survivor. I come at it more as a scholar. And what I have come to understand is that mostly Jonestown lives on in the person of Jim Jones. And I wrote my book so as to give a voice to the other people. I didn't want to write about Jim Jones. And it seems like also like with Charlie Manson, everybody is fascinated by the leader. And I know that the leader is a fascinating character, but it's as if all these other people got deprived of their humanity
Yeah.
because everybody wants to focus on the perpetrator. And so I wanted to focus on the victims, but not solely as victims. I wanted to see them as human beings with agency and humanity. And that's why I wrote that book, because it's about these four individuals, none of whom is Jim Jones. And I've started writing another book where I'm gonna give voice to other people who we never get to hear about who were part of it.
Cool. I like that idea. I like being able to um, come at it from a different perspective. Because you're right. Like even with documentaries, everybody always focuses on Jim Jones or Manson or Dahmer. They don't really go much into the story behind the people that they wound up hurting. So it's
Yes.
um, but it was quite an impactful book from what I've read. Glowing reviews everywhere. You have finalists and awards and whatnot. Was there ever a moment that gave you pause when you were writing that story, based off all the um, research that you've done? Because, like I said, the tapes themselves that anybody can listen to,
Yeah.
it's available on Wikipedia. But the Jim Jones tapes are horrific, and it just, I don't know. I don't know if I could do it without being affected some way.
Yeah. Um, yeah. People have asked me kind of how I could hang out in that sort of headspace for, let's say it took 4 years to write the book. And I feel like I could do it because I was living here in the mountains in a place that gives me solace, where nature offers solace. And it's a very unpopulated place. So it's mostly about the mountains and the clouds and the weather and wild animals. Because where I was living when I wrote the book was my cabin off grid at 9,100 feet. And,
Kind of
um,
jealous.
you know, yeah, I don't live in that cabin anymore, but I still live in Westcliff in the mountains.
Which is
So
kind of
there would
remote.
be, yeah, yeah, yeah. I went from super remote, now I'm less remote. But so where I was living when I wrote this, there were, antelope walking by the cabin, and that that like fed me in a way so that I could give myself over to the difficulty of this story, and as a fiction writer, my desire was to be able to recreate the worlds in which my characters were living, both for good and for bad, because the whole book is not about the massacre. The whole book is about decades before and the start of People's Temple, and then decades after, where the Jonestown community of survivors is very active with each other, and now there's a whole school of artists and historians and journalists and psychologists and people making various kinds of art, including things like operas that are that speak to the subject.
Mm.
So I tried to, have it be on the continuum of time, not just in the moment of Jonestown, although that is, of course, a very powerful moment. I'll tell you what I think is a funny story. One of my readers, the book is historical fiction, right? It doesn't pretend to be nonfiction. So when you pick it up, it says a novel of Jonestown here, right on the cover, a novel. And so this one woman had a response to me after she read it, which was she said, how could you know what Marcelin Jones, Jim Jones's wife, was thinking? Because I posit that in the book. I'm a fiction writer, so
yeah.
I'm very careful though about using first person and imagining myself into the shoes of a character. And mostly I write in third person, but I felt like on the day of the massacre, where Marcelin Jones is trying to stop it from happening and failing, she is unable to stop the mass poisoning from going on. And I felt like as a writer, I had to try to be in her head, not just look at her from third person she, with the distance of the third person, which I like so much. And the other chapters about her are in third person, but in that moment, I felt like it would be cowardly of me to avoid the first person because it's so painful.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so this particular reader, I guess, didn't get the fictional construct where you imagine what somebody is thinking, even though you can't know what they thought for real.
Right. That's like that in every book, actually. Unless you're a mind reader. It's called fiction for a reason, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Eva Richter, hello. Eva asks, interesting article in the New York Times this past Sunday about children being taken away from a cult in Guatemala called the Lev Tahor community. Do you know about this one? And quoting, Lev Tahor is an offshoot of the anti-Zionist Hasidic sect. An Israeli court has called the group a dangerous cult.
Yes.
So you've had heard of that one?
Yes. This cult has just hit the international headlines because they went and took all these kids out of there. And, kids meaning, I'm saying minors.
Yeah.
And it is one of the many cults that exist where children are sexually exploited. Now, that was not the case with the People's Temple.
No.
But it was the case with so many other religious cults. And even though People's Temple was run by the minister, Reverend Jim Jones, and he had been ordained by the disciples of Christ, he wasn't really interested in Christianity or what he called the sky god. He kind of lured people in with that, especially his elderly African American audience. But what he was really trying to do was create a kind of egalitarian socialist community. And he ultimately was the authority there, not the sky god and not the God of the Bible, New or Old Testament.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Waco. Waco, Texas.
Yeah, I mean that cult was definitely exploiting young girls. I'm actually reading a book about another cult in Mexico where the young girls were exploited by the men, married off at 14, and it's very sad how widespread the sexual exploitation of the young is in these groups. But I want to just repeat that there were many things wrong at Jonestown, but that was not one of them.
Yeah. So, how much? Because yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I know when you're writing about cults, um, there's a lot of psychology behind the mentality of it all.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
how much research did you have to do in psychology just for that? I mean, to understand what happened at Jonestown, you'd almost have a degree.
Well, yeah, I mean, my degrees are all in English and creative writing, but I feel like I've done my honorary degree in history. So the psychology is a huge part, of course, of studying about cults. And so the book that came out in about 1961 by the psychiatrist rather, Dr. Robert J. Lifton, and he has been writing about cults forever. But that first one was Thought Reform. I believe this is the title, Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. He was interviewing survivors of brainwashing, and that was a translation of the Chinese term where their prisoners were in re-education camps
Yeah.
and they were, washing their brains and trying to give them new outlook on the world. And the components of that include interrupted sleep, limited protein, so that you break the person down physically as well to get the new message, the new education. And when I was reading that book, which is, taking place on the other side of the world, these re education camps in China,
Yeah.
I was so amazed by how Jones, I thought, well, did Jones read this book? I mean, he could have read it. It was published in 61 because the people at Jonestown were constantly suffering from interrupted sleep, not enough sleep, and they didn't have enough protein in their diets. They were, towards the end, they were eating rice at every meal. And so that's part of how you can break down somebody's spirit
Yeah, yeah, makes you
is
wonder.
by, yeah. So Robert J. Lifton also wrote a book about the Aum Shinrikyo cult. I don't know if you remember that one, Japanese, where the leader got his people to put sarin gas in the subways in Tokyo, and a number of people
Oh,
died.
that sounds familiar. I think I heard of it.
Yeah. So anyway, so Dr. Robert J. Lifton is one of my go-to sources in the psychology aspect. And of course, there's tons of cults just about, tons of books about cults that I read. And the 70s was kind of the the great cult awakening in a certain way. A lot of people, I think, had hoped that in the 1960s they were going to change the world for the better, and it didn't happen. And so there were lots of people who were still looking. They were altruistic. Altruistic people tend to be drawn toward cults. They want to help make the world a better place, and on an individual level to help others do good. And that's what the People's Temple was doing when it started out, first in Indianapolis and then in California. They had food kitchens and they had a program to get people off of drugs that was really successful. And a lot of those people, after they got clean, then they stayed. I mean, one of the huge ironies was that the drug addict in Jonestown was Jim Jones. He never got clean. He just got worse and worse, which was also facilitated by the inner circle and his wife, who was a medical nurse, and the other medical people who were there. Um, so one of the things that was really important to me, I'm going to hold this up. Tell me if you can see this.
Yep.
The cult of death.
Yep.
So this was the Newsweek cover right after it happened. And then, interestingly, not with little imagination, Time,
Did the same
the
thing.
cult of death, and you can see the vat and you see dead bodies. And when it happened in 1978, November 18th, as the news sort of filtered out to the world, and so as I mentioned, I was 18 years old, but then I didn't pay attention to the news, unlike now when I'm a total news junkie. But the impression given to the world was that hundreds and hundreds, 900 plus human beings were zombies and were ordered to drink the Kool-Aid, although it wasn't Kool-Aid, it was Flavor Aid, and that they did it willingly and they mindlessly, numbingly went to their deaths. And that is not true
Oh, not if you
at
listen.
all.
Yeah, if you listen to the tapes, you can hear people screaming in the background. It's disturbing. The worst
So,
is hearing the kids scream in the background. That one
yes.
got me.
Absolutely. So yeah, so of the 900, 300 were kids. So we assume they're not able to make their own decisions willingly anyway. So, but it's also true that hundreds of the adults did not want to die, and there were men with guns who were forcing people to do it. And there were dozens of people who got injections in the back with the poison. So it was more of a mass murder than a mass suicide. Although, yes, there were some people who drank the poison willingly. And we'll
Then
never know exactly how many.
and then the senator who went down to check up on it, and then on his way out, they shot and killed him before he can get on the plane.
The congressman,
Yeah,
yes. So that's what happened first was the
yeah. Because then
Jones
at that point they knew they were coming.
Jones sent his henchmen to go kill the congressman and the media. He hated the media because he felt they were persecuting him, which I would say the media were doing what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to find out the story. And I started out as a journalist, so I feel like my journalism skills are super helpful as a fiction writer.
Yeah.
But so yeah, he sent his henchmen out to the airstrip to kill the congressman and the media, and then he gave that as the excuse to his followers to say, "Well, the congressman's dead. I didn't do it. I didn't tell anybody to do it, which is not true. That's a lie. And so they're all going to come after us, and we have no other alternative. And this one woman talked back to him. If you listen to the death tape, you heard her. Christine Miller. I dedicated my book to her. She was the only person who talked back to him. And she kept going about how we don't need to do this. But eventually, she got shouted down by other people there. And that's another really awful moment on those tapes.
Yeah. A whole lot of them. Like I said, if anybody's curious, they were available on Wikipedia. I don't know if they still are, but at one point they had all the recordings from Jonestown on the Wikipedia page for it. And I spent all night listening to them, and it was just,
Oh.
yeah. And it stuck with me. What about,
Well,
here's one
I
for you.
wanted to just direct your readers to the Jonestown Institute, where they have all the tapes, and they have been in the process of transcribing these. I don't know, I think there was like nearly 1,000 tapes the cassette tapes that they got at Jonestown. And Fielding McGee and Dr. Rebecca Moore, who run the Institute, they went through 10 years of FOIA, federal.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm forget. You know
Yeah,
what?
I know
We're
I know
in.
what the FOIA request.
Yes, so they had to get the tapes from the government, from the FBI, and it took at least 10 years, and I think there's still more that are being released now. And so there's really an amazing amount of information on their website, which is housed at San Diego State University. And if you just look up Jonestown SDSU.edu, you'll get there. And they're a really good source. There's a lot of bad sources out there on the internet. And that's that's one of the dangers of the internet. I mean, one of the good
Yeah.
parts is that people have reached each other, all these cult survivors communicating with each other because of the internet.
What about Heaven's Gate? There's a cult for
Yeah,
you. Kill
yeah,
ourselves
Heaven's
to
Gate.
jump on a spaceship. Well,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that one was weird. That was like 8 or 9 people though. That was like really small.
No, it's
Was
closer
it
to
bigger?
50.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was in the late 90s, and there were no children in
No.
that cult. There were just adults, and adults who left their children back home with family members to go follow this strange. It was a couple, and then the woman died. And so then they went to go joined the Hale-Bopp Comet,
Yep.
and it was kind of almost entirely white educated adults. There were no minors who were in that cult who died. And although it seems so peculiar, it's like all of the groups have the thread where reasonable human beings have gotten caught up in the clutches of these groups and led to their detriment and sometimes to their death. So that's why I feel it's really important to be examining the psychology of cult leaders and also of people who get drawn to them, who are not mindless zombies. They're human beings like you and me.
Yeah. Um, especially in today's climate.
Yes. We're in a very culty moment.
Yeah, we are. That's a story for another day. So I figure, um, so during your research, um, I guess we touched a little bit on it. What drives someone to want to be a part of a cult? It's more of almost kind of like how children will join sports. It's more about being a part of something larger than yourself. Um,
Yeah. The language, I'm sure you've heard this, and other people who've listened to these various cult education podcasts, is that nobody joins a cult. You join a group, you join an organization, and it offers you something. It offers you community, it offers you purpose, it offers you uh, a feeling of that you fit in the world someplace. And eventually, some of these communities seem to, what's the word, devolve into cults. And that's why we hear about them.
mm,
So I understand why people get drawn to them. And one of the kind of primary recruiting zones are college freshmen, right? Because oftentimes they're in a new place in the world. So one of my characters in my novel is a college freshman. She's never been away from home. She's in San Francisco. She's lonely. She doesn't know anybody. And she's ripe for the pickings. And then also college graduates so they've just had their 4 years of having this community, and then it's over. And
mhm.
now what are they going to do? And a lot of people, like uh, my friend who I lost to the cult, that's when she got recruited. And it's very sad that lonely people get preyed on by opportunists, which some
Mm.
of these leaders are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How about we try ending it on a high note? So, if you're curious, Paradise Undone is available on Amazon. The link is in the description down below. You can also check out Annie's website, which is also in the video's description. Um, on a lighter note, I want to talk a little bit about your arts and crafts side. You
Oh,
make
okay.
rugs,
I do.
and some of
I
them are
do.
really
I
interesting.
love making rugs.
And so it looks like you have a lot of artistic hobbies. How, for one, how do you like get anything done? You got rugs,
Well,
photographs, books, master's degrees.
yeah, I think probably a lot of people will relate to this, that it's really lovely to have something you can do, in my case, with my hands, that does not require thinking
Mm,
or focusing. And it's kind of, so it's more mechanical. I hook rugs, so each hook is one motion. It's bad for your wrist, just like
mm,
just like working on the computer. The carpal tunnel is a danger of hooking rugs. But what I do is I watch. So now a lot of my research isn't in books, it's on the screen, right? Where I'm watching videos or I'm listening to podcasts. And so I can hook rugs
oh
while I'm
goodness.
doing that.
Ah,
Um and so I'll take notes either on a pad or on the computer, where I can stop what I'm listening to and write something down that I need to hang on to. So it kind of goes with all of this work, which does require the mind and the heart, but then I feel like I'm making something beautiful at the same time as I'm spending my kind of creative energy in some very difficult places like Jonestown.
Yeah, finding beauty in a horrific world. That's kind of a nice sentiment, actually. Surrounding yourself with life when you're dealing with death.
Yes.
And then you take photos as well.
I used to really be a photographer back in the day before everybody had this little computer in their pockets that takes amazing photographs. So I don't really think of myself as a photographer anymore. Um, but I still work with some of the images that I took with my film camera. And I do believe that the image is another way of communicating, as language is kind of speaks to a different part of the brain, and then so often they work together, the image and the words, and that seems like in contemporary literature, there's a lot of combination now or cross genre where you have image and text together in the same book, which is kind of what happens in children's books, right? They're mostly image and they have a few words at the bottom, and that's how people learn. That's how kids learn to read. So I haven't devoted myself to that combination. I've been sort of I used to do photographs and I write books and I don't mix the two. Though I do want to say that this book, my very first book, 1993, this is my photograph on the cover. And then on my little chapbook of poetry. So if you can see this, these are my mountains. This is where I live. And so this is my photograph too, Anatomy of the World. This is a chapbook that came out in 2017. Um, so I have managed to get some of my images on the covers of my books, but
Yeah.
my focus now really more is I do rugs and I also do assemblages, which are 3D collages.
Oh yeah.
And I really like doing that. So I need, I suppose, different outlets for what I want to communicate. And what I used to tell my students in the classroom was you need to find the right form for your content. So the form might be a poem, it might be a novel, it might be a story, or the form might be a photograph, or it might be a collage, etc. Or if I was a musician, I would give you musical analogies. But I love music, but I don't create music.
It's interesting that you use the mountains on your book. On my book, Kingmaker, is actually 4 different photographs taken from Lookout Mountain here in Denver, and
Uh-huh.
I edited to it was to where it's one image, so it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we got all kinds of beautiful country out here.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I think we almost covered everything I had. Oh, um, we kind of skipped over this one earlier. Because I was talking about how you spent 15 years at Lewis and Clark, right?
Yes.
And then you've been at University of Denver since 2008?
16. No,
16. Okay.
2006.
Okay.
Yes.
Out of all the things that you've done, what would be one piece of advice you could give beginners who are just ready to start their own careers as writers? Because I've got quite a few here that are just getting ready to finish their masters.
Ah, well, I guess I would say keep your day job, which might be teaching. And there's a lot of people who feel like it's actually better to have a day job that has nothing to do with language or words, because then you can kind of keep that part of your head pure. And the great Eudora Welty, Southern American writer, she said painting chairs is a very good occupation for a writer. I mean, if you had a job where you make something beautiful and then it's done, and then you go on to the next one. And I personally love painting furniture, but and I've
Yeah.
done it a lot in my life, but not as a job. So, in terms of um, advice to those who are just starting out, um, I want to say have a practice. And the practice needs to be entirely your own. You don't need to write like anybody else does. So some people work on the computer, some people write by hand, some people are using voice to text. I mean, whatever the right thing is for you, um, that's what you need to stick to. And I think when I say having a practice, for some people that means getting up at dawn and writing for an hour and then going off and having the rest of your life. And I did that in my 20s. I do not do that now. um, but again, I feel like it needs to be suited to the individual at that particular time in that writer's life. And you shouldn't try and fit into somebody else's paradigm. Other people will have a different sort of practice and you'll feel inferior because you don't get up at 6 and write for an hour. But that may not be what you need to be doing. And maybe you have a commute to work and that's when you can do voice to text when you're driving. Um, so, so finding your own way of practicing your writing is what is important. And then what I was told over and over again is stay open for business. So you feel like the story you're writing is awful and you're no good and you can put it away, but you got to stay open to do more. Writing is a very difficult practice in itself, but can also be very satisfying. And so I hope that your listeners will do the never give up uh, number on themselves, which is what I did with my book here. And I wanted to tell you a little story, which is that when I started my book, my son was 4 years old, and he grew up, therefore, watching me get rejected. I mean, I got hundreds and hundreds of rejections for this book, along with the finalist thing. But I just kept going because I believed in my book. And so he watched this over and over for 19 years. And then last year, he was a graduate student, and I had my book published by this UK publisher, and he came to London to be with me on my book launch, and
Nice.
it was such an amazing kind of life moment of he is a grown up now, he's having his life, and he got to see his old mom finally accomplish this goal, which had kind of haunted him, or not him, me, but he watched me. I'm a single mother and he's my only child. And so that's my never give up story.
Never give up, never surrender. Jennifer says your creative life sounds incredibly satisfying. This is when we were talking about your rugs and um So is that the kind of stuff that you do on your off time? Like if you're not writing and just relaxing, you just work on the rugs, or is there something else that you?
Well, I'm a pretty competitive Scrabble player, and I've been playing competitive tennis
Oh,
for the last 10
yeah,
years.
I saw that. I was going to ask
So
about competitive Scrabble.
now, when I say competitive Scrabble, I mean I'm competitive at it, and I have friends, and I play with my son, who's very, it's like a family thing. I grew up playing it. I don't go to competitions or
uh,
anything with Scrabble, but I do for tennis.
okay.
So, that's, and then I'm a total dog person, and I I take my dog on the bike twice a day. We go for rides. I mean, he pulls me is what I mean. And so I do feel like the physical part of life is also really important, and it's a good complement to all the brain work that I do with writing and researching. So I like, and gardening when you can garden, which is not now. So,
Yeah, I try to grow pumpkins every year for the neighbor kids. This year I pulled out like 20 blue pumpkins.
whoa.
So yeah,
I tried. None for me.
I had a really good harvest this year.
Nice.
They all came out really good.
Nice.
Well, okay. Does anybody have any questions for Annie before we say our goodnights? Thank you very much for being on the show. It was very interesting. It's
I
kind of
appreciate the opportunity.
like I love historical stuff, and that's why I got into reading about Jonestown to begin with. I don't know. One day I just got on this kick of. I think it was
Mhm.
the same day that I was looking up Heaven's Gate, and so I started looking down
Mhm.
all these different cults throughout history, and I don't know. I wish it kind of makes me feel like it was a bit of a downer show, but because of all the bad things
Well,
that
I
happened.
mean, there's the content. It's a very difficult story, but I feel like as a writer and as a human being, you can't turn away from that. That's part of the human condition. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to look at it with empathy and compassion, and also with eyes wide open, so that we don't sugarcoat
yeah,
the awfulness of parts of the human story.
yeah. But I don't sugarcoat anything, much to the chagrin of my family. So, um, I guess we can wrap things up then. Don't forget that Paradise Undone is available on. Is it just on Amazon, or do you have it available elsewhere?
No, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So you can go on bookfinder.com, you know that website,
Yeah.
and you can find out the price of it with the postage everywhere in the world. So I use that all the time for my research, bookfinder.com.
Alrighty. And you can also click on the link in the video description, takes you straight to the Amazon page, and her blog is also available on the description. Um, I think that wraps it up. Thank you very much for joining. Do you have any
Thank you.
plans for writing anything similar in the future?
Well, so the research I'm doing now is going to be for a collection of short stories. So it'll be historical fiction about these various other human beings connected to the Jonestown story that I didn't write about in this book, because there's so many fascinating stories, and I didn't feel like I was done with it. Jonestown's not done with me, and I'm not done with Jonestown. So look for a collection of short stories in 2028, which is the 50-year anniversary of the massacre.
Well, when you get it done, you'll have to hit me up again, and we'll have you back on the show talk about it. I'm
Great.
I'm
Thank you.
always interested in that kind of stuff. So thank you very much, Annie, and have a great evening. Thank you for being on so late. Well, we're in
Thanks.
Colorado, so it's only 8. So
All right. I appreciate the
yeah,
opportunity. Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Oh, hold on. Bam. There we go. And I'm back. That was awesome. Really a lot of information there on Jonestown. I'm telling you, that was one of the
Powering
out of
off.
all the things. So I got KDC got to hear the sexy headset lady. Out of all the things that I've ever researched, Jonestown is probably one of those ones that hit me really hard. And I did this back about 15 years ago. And listening to the tapes was it's bone chilling, especially when you hear the kids in the background. And it just, for like days, it screwed me up pretty good. I was looking, I saw the interview Annie did with Laurel McHargue 10 months ago. I bet I said that name wrong. So, okay, anywho, I guess we can do our card. There's an error with the playback, whatever. Freaking YouTube's doing a YouTube thing again. Love historical fiction is awesome. Yeah, I guess Shadows isn't necessarily historical fiction, but there are historical references in it. Completely fiction. So, except for the ship, the hotel, and the two towns that are nearby, those are all real. The ship that sinks at the very beginning of Shadows of Atlantic City, that was a real ship, and it really sank. In fact, I described the sinking of it exactly how it is in the history books. I just twisted why it sank. So, I also love reading ghost stories about old buildings. Yeah, I love mysteries. Dark 5 on YouTube has a lot of really cool mysteries that I was watching recently. I'm like, I need to start writing these down because some of them are going to make some awesome books. Okay, let's see. Last week's card was progressive muscle relaxation. Like this is the ones that Sam doesn't know we like. Soothe your mind and body, pick a body part, foot, leg, etc. Tense it for a few seconds, then release it and relax it for 10 seconds. Yeah, I don't know if these are the I swear it was the other deck that we didn't like, but maybe it's this one. See, these are more of just ways to help you find your calm, so not necessarily aspirations or affirmations. Yeah, because it's more of mindfulness cards to help you relieve anxiety and find mindfulness. So this was the first deck that we used. I'm not sure. Whatever. Okay, so our card for this week, drink a glass of water. Slow down, hydrate. Simply slowing down to drink a glass of water can be calming and supports stress recovery. Yes, it does. Water is good for you for many things, actually. In fact, I wrote an article about what happens when you're dehydrated. Lots of research because I base everything in science. Anywho, yep, that'll be it for this year. Annie's was the last interview. Obviously, because next week is next year. So I'm going to be on next Monday, flying solo, but I do have another interview coming up. She was going to be gone for the holidays, but I'm going to find out if she's still available. It's Barbara, but I can't remember her last name. And I just got an email for somebody else who was interested in being on the show. So good times. We're going to start next year. Awesome. Because I have interviews. I'm going to be at Tattered Cover January 11th for World Building 101 for fantasy and sci-fi authors. I'm still trying to figure out a way if I can live stream it. Maybe I should get everybody's permission just to make sure it's all okay. Some people I'm not sure are going to like it, but if we can't, we can't. I'll just talk about it. Looking forward to the stream tomorrow night. KDC, I hope you join us. Yep, Sam and I will be on Crossing Colorado's Fit podcast tomorrow. Michael, I just ate an ice cream sundae. I wish I did. I had a bunch of divinity today. Needless to say, I didn't lose any weight. I was back up and down all week, so whatever. I guess that's it. Don't forget that Freelancer's Tale and Kingmaker are available on Amazon, paperback and ebook format. Kingmaker is also available in hardcover. Link is in the description down below. And I've started the merch store, and I'm going to be adding more stuff to it as soon as I get time to alter the graphics, because I want to put the book cover on a blanket, but I need to make the image bigger, like way bigger. So that's going to take a moment. And then I got some ideas for some things I want to put on some shirts. People keep asking for a shadow plushie. I got to figure out how that works, because I can order plushies, stuffed animals, but I don't know how it all works and how, if I've just submitted an image and they make it or what. So I'm going to have to look into that. But Shadow is going to have her own category. It's a collection. That's what it is on Fourth Wall. So it'll be the Shadow collection. So she'll have her own cups and everything, because people like her more than me. So, in fact, she was with me damn near the entire interview. I don't know where she went. Hey Michael, I clicked on your link to Annie's website, but it kept leading me to a porn site. See, and it was working fine for me, so it wasn't just Jennifer. Hold on, let me check, because if it's doing it, I have to squick it. Because it worked fine for me earlier. Yeah, I see it just fine. That is so weird. I wonder why. Who's using Chrome? I'm using Chrome, and it seems to be working fine for me. I'm at Annie's website. Annie Dawid, author and artist. That's why I don't know. Jennifer was having the same issue, but I'm looking at it. Back here, check it out. This is what it looks like. Bam. See? It's Annie's awards. But yeah, I don't know what you guys are running into, because it's working fine for me. I don't know. I don't know if I should take it off, because I don't want YouTube flagging me. So now I'm torn. I'm using Chrome 2. Yeah, I don't get it. In fact, I just clicked on the link from the video. So I don't know. But if everybody else is having porn issues, that's going to get the video flagged for sure. I just can't verify it. I don't know why. I don't know what you guys are having issue with. I don't know. What do you think? I don't want to like take it off, because you know what? I'm gonna err on the side of caution. Let's remove Annie's link, and I'll let her know that you guys were having issues. Her Amazon link is still up, so there it is. Huh. All right. Well, I'll let her know that you guys were having an issue with it. In fact, I'll do that now so I don't forget. See if I can get to general podcast. Okay. Let's see. Thanks again. Yeah, watching me type. Riveting content, people. There. I just wanted to make sure that she was aware that you guys were having an issue. Because I like to make sure everybody is covered. And the last thing I need is YouTube flagging this video. So I just got monetized. I think it's a search engine issue. Google search, no problem. Yahoo and Chrome search went to a big bad place. Huh. I'll just Google her name. Yeah, that's what I ended up doing. Her links from the university seem good too. Yeah. I don't know why. Like it's working perfect for me. So I don't know. But I did let her know just to make sure that she wasn't compromised. So that way she knows that if anything gets screwed up, I clicked on her name after looking her up on the web. It's not them. Huh. I don't know. Michael's worked way too hard to be demonetized now, right? That would so piss me off. Urge to kill rising. No. But that would be very, very bad. 6 years in the making. Get monetized for 2 weeks just to get it revoked. Now, how else am I going to make $3 a day? Anywho, I don't know what to say about the website. It was working fine for me. That's how I did most of the research on her today and yesterday. And I don't know. Crappy. But, it's good to let her know. That way she can have her web person or somebody scan through it just to make sure that there's nothing wrong. So it's always better to be safe than sorry. Anywho, alrighty. I think I'm about done. I did my outro, did I? It wasn't pouring, just saying the link doesn't work. Oh, okay. So you probably did the same thing I did. There is, if you go to the site and it says continue onto the site or back out, if you continue to the site, it takes you to it. And when you go to the site, her site does have an SSL attached. Now, I have seen this happen before with certain plugins in WordPress, which it looks like she's using. How did I fix it? I had to, because my website was doing the same thing for a while. I had to do, I think I wrote a blog post about it so I wouldn't forget. But it is a common problem when you have certain SSLs with WordPress. There's a certain way you have to put it in. That way Chrome doesn't flag it as a bad site. But I can't remember if it was something in the HT access file or file, or if it was a setting. I'm fairly sure I wrote it down though. WriterSanctuary. Damn it. Hold on, let me see if I swear I wrote it. Maybe we did an article on Green Geeks for it. I wouldn't even know what it was. It was a long time ago. Fix a non-secure web. Oh, I did write it. I never published it. I only titled it. Oh. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, so in one instance, if your site address is different than your WordPress address, like if one says HTTPS and the other one says HTTP, it will flag that same problem. Otherwise, if having set up HT access, that's where I got it from, was the rewrite engine. If you have the port and then put in your domain, then it rewrites the rewrite rule changes, and so it no longer will flag that as being a bad site. Because that's what it is that when your browser goes to her website, it thinks that it's not secure, where Chrome does, because it's returning an HTTP instead. And so you have to go through and set everything correctly for it to be HTTPS, which verifies that it is, and it does have a secure socket layer on it. And that was probably Swahili to a bunch of you people out there, but that's how you fix it. I did it twice. I'm looking at the blog post that I never published because I didn't finish the article. Why didn't I finish the article? Okay, so I'm going to save the draft and then try it again, I guess. Wonder why I didn't finish it. Because that's how I fixed it. Oh well. Anywho, Swahili. Yep. As if anybody knows what the hell I'm saying. Yeah, that's what it is. Is that when you go to this website at first, some browsers like Chrome, Firefox, I think Opera will flag it because it's returning the incorrect prefix. Bing, Firefox didn't work either. Yeah, that's Firefox will do the same thing as Chrome, but it's real. It's a good site. You just click on continue anyway, and it'll take you straight to Annie Dawid's website. But that's how she would fix it. So if you're watching, Annie, there's two ways you can fix that problem. It could be just as simple as going into the back end of WordPress and making sure the addresses in your settings are both identical. Because even if it's one's HTTPS, the other one's HTTP, it'll do that error. So I should do WordPress tutorials. I do. Maybe I should publish them. I don't have the option to continue website. I did, and I was using Chrome. Michael, the Ultimate Writer plus IT for Writers. I've just been using WordPress since 2008. So I was using Joomla for the website. And then I moved from Joomla to WordPress when it was 4.3, 4.2, back in 2008. And I've been using WordPress ever since. And now I do WordPress tutorials for Game Geeks. We've done more than 1,000. So, I don't know then. If you guys don't have that option, I don't know. I'd have to see it break. I can't troubleshoot if it's not broken for me. Because it works fine. I'm not calling anybody a liar. Just saying from when I did it. I'm looking right at her website. So I don't know. Still, it could be something that she could contact her IT people for. So, and I would rather somebody have their stuff going. So, all right. Okay, we don't need that. That one's a new author. Oh, Eva, you were just on. I don't know if she's still here, but Eva Richter sent me I'm eager to see the interview with Annie. Yeah, submitted right before the show. So I will have to send Eva an email and find out if Eva wants to be on the show. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. It's going to be, what a way to end 2025. I don't know. It was really cool. I wasn't sure. So Jonestown affected me deeply. I wasn't sure if it was going to trigger anything because the tapes to it it's nightmare fuel. But the way she came at it wasn't too bad. So I'm kind of glad we had her on the show and looking forward to seeing what else she's got coming up. So anywho, tomorrow, let's see, next Monday will be the last show of the year. We'll do a wrap up, all the things I accomplished because it's my show. But hey, let's just stuff you accomplished too. So think about the things that you accomplished this year and things that you're proud of, and we'll discuss them on next Monday's show. And don't forget, Sam and I will be on Crossing Colorado tomorrow at 7 p.m. Christmas Eve. And then we'll be on New Year's Eve. Oh, you know what would be fun? If we can set up a camera, do a live stream all New Year's Eve, take you all outside with like fireworks, and get liquored up. Remember, both of my channels are labeled as not friendly for kids. Alrighty. Anywho, thank you guys for hanging out. And did you say you will have a stream on yours? Yes. We will be live. I plan on being live on the 30th, and then we'll have the last show for Crossing Colorado on the 31st. I would like to just set up a camera somewhere and just hang out, and everybody can hang out with us. So we'll have to see how that goes. I think that'd be fun. And so everybody will have a New Year's Eve with Sam and I and everybody. I think that'd be great. Anywho, lots of parties and the hearts going off. That's awesome. Just drink champagne and unwind. Invite Chris. I don't know if I would love to have Chris here, but he's in a different state. So I don't, and it also depends on if he's working. So alrighty. Anywho, wish me luck. This week I'm gonna try adding more stuff to the merch store and finish my book. That would be awesome to get it published in the next couple of weeks. And I think that's gonna wrap it up. So if I don't see you by then, have a good Christmas. Have a happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2025. I don't want anything I do on New Year's Eve captured on camera. Why not? We've never done anything that bad out here. Just the one night when the boys, like my oldest, got liquored up so hardcore drunk that he threw up all over his arm in Sam's chair. That might get flagged, but hey, my life is on camera. And once it's on the internet, it's there forever. Another fun, wild night. That's why we need Chris. Yeah. Well, we'll see what we can do. I think I would love to have a fun New Year's Eve. So, anywho, see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. Have a great night and keep writing. So I wonder why that doesn't work. It works for me. I'm looking right at it. Huh. What if because I haven't re-updated Chrome? Maybe I can see Annie's website because my browser's obsolete. Who knows?